Welcome to another episode of ActivateenCC, where we cross the chasm with community chats.
Hi, welcome to ActivateenCC's podcast on what is design. We've got a really good friend of mine, and we've got her daughter. So Doreen Lorenzo joins us, and Kara Scully.
Mm-hmm.
Kara, did I say that right?
You did, yes.
Doreen is the successful leader of global creative firms and has advised Fortune 100 companies on design and innovation issues for decades. In August 2017, she was named Assistant Dean of the newly founded School of Design and Creative Technologies, a collaboration between the Department of Design and the Center for Arts and Entertainment Technologies. Previously, Doreen served as the director of the Center for Integrated Design at University of Texas at Austin. Doreen's done so many things, and I think, I hope I get all of this right. Doreen, you're also a co-founder of a mobile video insights firm, Vidlet, as well as you're on the board of many startups. And you are also a columnist for Fast Co-Design. And do you still write on Medium?
I do. Yes,
okay.
All of that.
Okay. Doreen's absolutely wonderful. She is also incredibly funny because she's actually emceed a couple of events for companies that I've worked for, and she had us all in stitches. Kara is a marketing, PR, and social media professional who partners with consumer product brands to grow their business. She is currently on the growth and marketing team at Atlas Coffee, a fast-growing Austin, Texas-based company. Kara has, prior to Atlas, she was the marketing and social media manager at Crier Communications?
Yes.
Okay. Where she helped multiple CPG brands grow their business and social media presence substantially. She is she's got a BA in public relations from the Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism at the University of South Carolina. But
Southern California.
Southern California, yes, USC, right. Yes. And Kara is previously from Austin, Texas, right?
Correct, yeah.
So Kara, you were born in Austin?
I was actually born in San Francisco. We moved to Austin in, I think, June of 1995, if I'm correct, Mom. So no memory of San Francisco. I was a baby, so basically from Austin with an 8-year stint out in Los Angeles, and now I'm back.
Now you're back.
Mm-hmm.
So Doreen and Kara, tell us a little bit more about what I didn't cover on the brief bio.
Well, if I could add to my mom's bio a little bit, she did do a lot of amazing things. Can I add that she was the Cedar Creek Elementary room mom from 1999 to 2000 for me? She was the Girl Scout Troop 678 leader from, I believe, 2004 to 2012.
I love this.
Chief stress management officer when I called her in college at 2:00 in the morning trying to write a paper. Those are the most important to me.
Well, what I was going to say to you when you say all that, and I look at my daughter, the most important thing I did was raise wonderful children. So my daughter and my son, and it's truly like that's for me. All the other things I did was great, but I love that, and I love. Now, you know, what I always tell the students at the university is when I give them advice, I always say, you know, I tell my own children the same thing. Like they don't. This is kind of just advice that I give people. So
solicited or not, we've gotten it.
I forgot. Yeah, the Girl Scout troop. That was that Girl Scout troop. So I took over this Girl Scout troop with the understanding that what Girl Scouts don't stay, like they're going to go to middle school and they're not going to want it. Seniors in high school.
Yeah.
And how many of you? 9 of you.
Nine of us out of, I think, 11 got our Girl Scout Gold Award.
Wow.
Huge. And that's all thanks to her saying, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? It's not that hard. Let's get the paperwork. Are you going to do it? Submit your proposal. It's fine. It's not. I think other troops in our district maybe had like 2 or 3, but we had 9.
That's
and recently I met the woman who runs the Girl Scout, and I was telling her a story. She goes, "Oh my God, that's you? We heard about that." Like, she goes, "We heard that story where like 9 girls in the troop got their gold award." So it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I remember other district Girl Scout troops used to have her come and speak to all these moms about, it's not that hard to be a troop leader. I work all these jobs, I do all these things, and I still do it. You can do it. So she was like a really big recruiter for the Girl Scouts, actually.
And you know, that's the whole thing with Doreen. She just makes everything so effortless and easy. And I've never, for as long as I've known Doreen, I've never seen her, you know, complain. Is she like that at home?
Yes.
She a hard week for me, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
I mean, yeah, she'll complain about other things, but not work. So something she always said to me, especially in like my moments of panic and stress, was everything will get done because it has to get done. So I think that's your mindset, is that it'll get done because it has to. There's no option for it not getting done. So yeah, that's something that I repeat to myself all the time when I'm stressed.
And Doreen, what would you say about Kara?
Smart. I sometimes I'm like, wicked. She's so wicked. She's way smarter than myself. She gets that all from my husband. She's wicked smart, and so just in a good soul, and just a good heart, but wicked smart. That's the thing that, like, whoa, okay, those brains. And Kara's very very determined. When she puts her mind to something, it gets done. She was gonna go to USC. She was gonna get this job. I mean, Kara just goes, like, she gets something fixated, and she just does it. So yeah, and like I said, it's fun. It's fun to watch that. She's very prescribing, very organized, far more organized than I am.
I do. So, I love organization.
So I think that a lot of people underestimate the organization, how important organization is for life. It's a critical skill, because, you know, we glamorize that creativity has to be chaotic, but creativity is actually enhanced by strong organizational skills. So Kara, how was your USC experience, and what would you tell high school students who want to go to USC? Because I know a lot of people believe that USC is their dream school, and I know Sarah is. You know, she's on the call, and she's looking at USC too.
Yeah, I mean, USC was also my dream school. I actually toured it when I was in middle school, and my brother was looking at colleges, and I tagged along, and I said, I'm going to go here. And I kept up with that, and I ended up going there. But it is a hard school to get into. I had to work really hard at my grades. I had to really nail the AP tests. I had to do a pretty vigorous interview, which I was nervous for. I remember the interview was optional, and my mom saw that letter that, like, you know, you can do an interview, you don't have to. And she looked at me and she said, you're doing the interview. So I think a little bit of it was advocating for myself and talking my way in and selling myself to them, basically saying how I could be an asset to the school and how I could help. And then I tried to really do that when I got there. I did a lot of extracurriculars. I took a lot of classes covering a wide range of subjects. I really tried to take advantage of some of the more fun classes there. One thing I did my freshman year, which was a blast, was I took a class on the history of the Beatles, which was like my chill class. Like, every other thing was kind of stressful, and obviously your first year of college is hard. You're getting all those gen ed requirements that you have to take, but it might not necessarily be your main interest, like science and math. So I did set aside some fun classes for myself. And then when I was choosing a major and did land in PR, because I was interested in brand stories and brand storytelling, that's where it got really fun. And I really enjoyed the way that program is structured. it's all very practical knowledge. It's all very small classes and small groups, and you're doing projects that are happening in the real world. It's not so much lectures and big halls. So I just really dove into that head first and just pretended like I was working at a real company in the real world. And all of that translated exactly when I did graduate and did get into a job. So it was a great program.
So one of the questions, I know what we want to also talk about is how storytelling influences design. And then Doreen, I would love for you to talk about how you define design thinking. So Kara, can you talk about the good storytelling, good communications, and why that is so important, especially now, where everything is taken out of context, right?
Yeah, good storytelling really starts with a really good structure. Fiction, nonfiction, current events, any good story has a beginning, middle, and end. It has a strong thesis, it has a climax, it has a hero, and it has a nice conclusion. And that's something that I try and really focus on when I'm telling a brand story. I look at it as if I'm putting a puzzle together, but I'm also making it exciting and interesting, and I'm giving some sort of a value to the person that's reading it. So that's where that organization comes in. If you look at everything going on and you almost have to storyboard it, like who are the heroes here? What's the problem? What's the inspiration? So when I'm talking about a brand and I'm trying to put together either a marketing plan, a PR plan, a press release, that's what I'm looking at. And then at the end, it has to wrap it up in a bow of what your message is. This is why we should inspire you. This is why you should be using this product in your life. This is why you need us. And I think that growing up with someone like my mom, who always had such a focus on design thinking, is helpful for that, because it gives you the creativity that you need to turn a simple story into something that resonates with people. And then also the communication aspect of that is that organization and that nitty gritty and getting down to it and making it something that makes sense and is digestible for anyone on the street reading it.
That's fantastic. And you must make sure that the information is not hidden, right? The key information
it has to be obvious, and it has to be concise. Obviously, attention spans are lower these days. You have to really work on getting your point across in as many words as possible and not overflowing people with the information. So that's something I love about marketing, is you always identify who you're talking to, and then you tailor that story to who that is.
I want to come back to marketing and how suddenly it's become the hottest job.
It has.
Everyone's looking for good marketing professionals. And the whole definition of marketing has changed from push marketing, which we all, we're doing all the time, to convincing and converting your audience. And also authenticity in marketing.
Of course. Right now, the world of marketing channels is exploding. For every single tech innovation, every single new app, every single new connectivity tool that we're using, there's a marketing channel. And you have to stay authentic to the people using that. Obviously, right now, TikTok is blowing up, and everyone in the marketing world is like, how do we jump on this? Like, how do we make this work for us? And it's different than the digital marketing that we were doing on Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook. It is more authentic, and it is a different audience. And so that's something that you really have to pay attention to. So I spend a lot of time thinking about every single marketing channel. And I still think about the old school marketing channels. I mean, I get coupons in the mail every single day, and they still influence me. Like I still read a coupon and I'm like, oh, I should sign up for HelloFresh. So marketing, old school marketing still works, and push marketing still works. Seeing a billboard on the street still works, but other things work too. And so we have to find every single way that we can reach our audience and not oversaturate, not make them hate us, but just be a part of the conversation. And I think it's really a big responsibility of brands right now to be a human. Act human, show your humanity, don't just be a name. And I think that's why it is such a hot job. I think that millennials and Generation Z wants to do work that feels authentic. And I think what's more authentic than working with the tools that we use every day in our lives and telling stories through them?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Doreen, tell us about design thinking. How, a lot of people still think design is about art, and they don't see that it influences everything. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I think Kara just nailed it. It's the human side, right? So design thinking really is human-centered design. It's looking at how is a human going to use something? How are they going to interact with something? And so the three questions you always ask yourself is, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Who are you trying to solve that problem for? And is the problem worth solving? Because sometimes people just come up with ideas. And so if you were going to apply design thinking to some of the stuff that Kara was talking about, it's like looking at the human. Like, how are you going to reach this group of people that want authentic experiences? You have to really think through what is that problem that they're trying to solve, and is it going to be something that's worth it for them? Because everything that we're describing ties back to the emotional connection. We have to feel, oh, I'm emotionally invested in this, because if we don't feel that, if we feel that it's some sort of come on or some sort of something I don't need, you can run screaming from it. But design thinking really, it's a problem solving method, right? You're looking at ways of solving problems with the human in mind. That's the most important thing. Without the human in mind, this is not, it doesn't mean it. You can't solve this problem for yourself.
Right.
You have to understand people, and that's the empathy. You're kind of understanding people and what their needs are. And once you do that, I always say the solutions come. Like, they come fast and furious. They're really easy when you understand what's motivating and driving people to have the behaviors that they have. And then you can see it. Oftentimes, particularly in the work world as well as in the education world, people come to you with solutions. They'll have the app they're going to make, the air they're going to make, the product they're going to make, and you're like, but what is that problem? Does the world need another piece of software to solve that problem? So one of the companies I worked for, it was crowdsourcing ideas, and every week we get an app-enabled toilet paper holder, because you can, right? And at some point you say, do you really need an app? Like, either you have toilet paper on the holder or you don't. Like, you don't really need an app to tell you that, but because sometimes people are like, oh, that's so cool, and people get caught up in the technology component of it, they think, well, that's a solution. That's just not how problems are solved.
That's great. Actually, what I was just telling Sarah and Santiago the other day was, it has to solve a pain, or it has to fulfill a pleasure, right? And if you're not thinking through those two fundamental concerns of human life, then you build something that dies, because there is no utility for that idea. So what drew you to this path, Doreen?
I fell into it. I mean, I've always worked with creative people my whole life, and great thing for young people to know, doors open every single day for you. Every single day there's an opportunity, and it's, are you willing to accept that opportunity and step outside of your comfort zone and go through that? Walking into design was stepping outside of my comfort zone. I don't have a design background. I have a creative background, but I don't have a design background. But I walked into it, and I found that it was something that I really understood. It was very much who I was. I was a problem solver. And here was a methodology and a way for me to solve problems. And I could work with all these wonderfully, incredibly creative people that I learned for. And I could solve problems in systems, in technology, in products, in graphic, all of that. It cut across all that. And so really for the next 20 years, that's what I did. And so I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about not only the industry or what design is, but really how do you grow a creative environment, which I think is really important, because I think we lose that in our world. We got so focused on STEM, we forgot that people need to be creative.
Right.
And that's important. And that's why with both my children, they were great in math and science. That might have not been their thing. They were both great in math and science, but it was like, explore that creative side, because the world needs that too. Like, you need that. And both of them tended to go off into the creative world.
Now, you were the CEO of Frog Design, and that was when design companies were actually coming into their own, right?
Right. When I started at Frog in 1997, it was a very small company, maybe 60 people. It had been very well known, though. It had the founder had been the designer of the original Apple Macintosh. It was a well-known company, but it was a company that was boutique-y. You know, it was little, not a lot of people. And I kind of really helped grow that, bring in some new capabilities, which was all the digital. It was when the digital world was exploding. When I left Frog, it was 1,100 people. So, kind of figured out how to grow a company and really make design meaningful. I spent most of my career having people understand the value of what design brings to any organization. And obviously, we were buoyed by things like Apple and made a difference, but people began to see the value of what design brings, and you see it in everything that you do. I mean, I know Kara spends a lot of time thinking about, in all of her stuff, is the design of the thing. And design doesn't necessarily mean the artifact of the graphics or the visuals. It's systems. It's how you interact with things. That is all design, and that's the things that we teach today in a design program.
So thank you, Doreen. Kara, let's talk about influence. Your role in your companies, you worked with PR, and PR is changing. Social media has intersected with PR in a big way. What are you learning?
So much. Again, I started as a public relations major, and I think something that I didn't understand in school until I started working in the practical side of things is, like you said, how hand in hand that goes with marketing, advertising, social media. And something that USC did was they actually kept their marketing school and PR school like super separate, like church and state. And that's just not the reality. The further I got into PR, the more my role started morphing into marketing. And that's because PR is telling the story of a brand. But then if you dig a little deeper and you say, why are we telling this brand story? And that's because the brand exists to make a profit. That's not a secret. Unless you're a nonprofit, you're trying to sell your thing. And so we're telling this story. And then when you start to ask yourself, why are we telling this story? To sell the thing. So influence really expanded from, we want to have this influence as a company for doing good, for making good things happen. But then you get into the marketing side of it, and who are we telling that story to? What are our markets? Who are our reach markets? Who do we want to influence in the future? So I think that's a big way that PR is changing is, yes, PR, you send out a press release when big news happens. Like that's important. That's probably moving more towards a tweet, something on social media, maybe not as old school. Yeah. So, you want to keep press up to date. It's always important to keep, your buds in press and in the media updated on what's going on. But that influence is wider than just press writing about you in the media, because now your influence is direct. It's with you and your customer, and social media allows you to own that narrative and talk directly to them. Again, it's the difference between earned media and owned media, which is an older concept, but owned media is really just skyrocketing with the presence of social.
So when we look at the old school PR, you would do a press release and then you'd have a whole cycle around it, right? Now you're doing micro releases.
Exactly.
Which are not so formatted and not so formal, but there's a drip campaign that's happening where the story is continuously being told because the cycles have become shorter, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And how are you working? What is your generation looking for in your storytelling?
Authenticity is a really big one. And I think that my mom also kind of nailed it on the head when she said, why do we need this product and how is it helping me? I mean, I look at products all the time where that looks shiny and cool, but why do I need it? So right now I'm working for a subscription coffee company, and we talk about that all the time. Like, what value are we providing to our customers, or what journey can we take them on? And sometimes it really is just happiness. Sometimes I think a big one also, you know, you said fulfilling a problem or making people happy. I think that curiosity is a really big driver too. You think of companies like 23andMe, which really just relies on solving that like innate curiosity that we have as people. I actually started my schooling with the thought that I was going to be a cultural anthropologist, which I think I am kind of doing just marketing wise, but that is always a big question of mine, is what drives people and what are people curious about? What do people want to learn about? And I think that that's really what we crave, is we want to solve problems, but we also want to inspire our own curiosities with the brands that we use and purchase and buy into.
Kara, I wanted to just comment on something that you said, because what's interesting is today in marketing, I know that you spend a lot of time talking to customers. Like, customers have this voice they never had before, right? We used to, Shaku and I are kind of old school marketers. Like, we used to push it out, and then you never had to hear from them again, right?
Yeah, you have to talk to them.
A lot of time. I know you're like, oh, I'm doing customers. Like, you spend a lot of time. Actually,
I'm in my DMs right now, constantly talking to customers.
And they want that access, right?
Of course, yeah. And they want to see that it's a person. They like it when you sign your name and you say, hey, yeah, just reach back out to me if you have any questions. I can give you my email. Like, really personal, because that's what I want when I look at a brand. I don't want to think that I'm just talking to a machine. Like, you know, the secret's up. It's not like they're these magical brands and they're untouchable. Like, with social media and with the way that we're so interconnected, obviously we know there's another person on the side. So why do we have to keep pretending like there's not? And so when you're talking to someone just one-on-one, it breaks that fourth wall and it brings down the veil that, you know, like, it's this company overlord that's telling you something about their product, and you want to just ask them. You want to just talk to someone and have a dialogue, because we're all just people.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important to acknowledge.
I love that. We're moving away from the anonymity of the brand, which was like, you know, just this big sitting in a tower and passing out specific information about your product. But now transparency is such a big thing. So if you're not able to show that level of transparency, people distrust your brand. Once they distrust your brand, they don't really want. It's almost like if you have utility, they will continue to use you, but they're not necessarily going to stay with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's how do you build that lifetime customer? How do you build that lifetime relationship?
So Doreen, what are you seeing at SDCT, the School of Design and Creative Technologies? I'm so fond of acronyms.
What do I see a lot of opportunity for the students. And that's really why the school was formed. You know, it's a fairly new school. We're in our 7th semester. We're the largest growing school in the College of Fine Arts, but it's all about taking this creativity that all these students have and giving them the skills to go out into the marketplace and be successful. You know, I have this belief as we look at artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we know this is real, like this is happening, we use it every day. They can't, but machine learning can't replace creativity and creative thinking and all those critical thinking skills that you have. And so I feel like our job at the school is to teach our students those skills, to go out there and be problem solving, to look at where the world is going, to understand the emotional connection So we have our design program, which is really, teaching people everything about, again, graphic design to industrial design to system design to experience design. And then we have our arts and entertainment technology, which is really looking at how do you take, so that's a BS degree, which is a little different.
I love that.
In an arts college, but
yeah.
How do you take technology and creativity, which is what we use every single day, and merge that together to create some of these experiences that we have? We know that we are drawn to experiences. So how do you create that in an environment that makes sense? And a lot of these, what's interesting about this is where this started pretty much a lot of game, like as a game program, this game technology is now being used for movies or theme parks or medical devices, oil and gas. So there's a lot of skills our students can take and run with that. So we're fortunate. We have a wonderful faculty, and we have just a lot of amazing students. During this pandemic, we're online. The whole school is online, and so I really felt that our students were missing that interaction, and so I just embarked on this crazy thing. We have 600 and something students. Invited all of them to sign up 30 minutes meeting with me, and they can do it as much as they want. And I've talked to hundreds of students. I spend 2 to 3 hours a day on Zoom calls with students. And I am just blown away by how smart these students are and how in tune they are with where the world is going. And the fact that they see this connectivity between brand, between technology, between creativity. And it's almost like there's no more right brain, left brain. They just trigger, they just go back and forth. It's just the synapse fire. I'm sure someone's going to do a PhD paper on this, because we're not seeing that. Like they could do, they're computer scientists and they're also incredible creators. And so it's just going back and forth. So that's the school. And we're really tied back into the community to make sure that what we're teaching are skills that people that would hire them would need. And I spend a lot of time with the community to understand what are the needs. How do we then, so we have a very reactive curriculum, which again in higher ed is different, but I'm really dead set on making sure people get jobs, as my daughter could attest to. I'm like, you can be creative. I want you to be creative, but what are the skills that you need to go out there and get those jobs?
So how would you define creative technologies, Doreen?
Well, if you're going to learn things like a game engine, like games are built on a game engine. So everybody has to take creative coding in the school. And then you can go deeper dives. You can get a minor in computer science, or you can learn some of the game engines at depth. We actually have companies like Epic and Unity teaching classes to our students. And then how do you use that coupled with maybe visual skills or music skills? How do you bring that together so that you're creating something that's unique? So that's what is really understanding how this technology is used in a creative fashion. So you're not just strictly coding, but you're kind of thinking of the bigger picture. Because again, so many of these students today coming out of high school, they've learned how to code when they were in elementary school. They know how to code. So it's like writing, it's not something they have to learn. And so they can pivot really easily between some, visual design and technology.
I love that, because the world is becoming hybrid, right? Mm-hmm. And so Kara, on that note, how is your company using technology to understand the end user?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I know that we do, it's not necessarily my side, but we do so much work on the back end to determine the lifetime value of a customer and how we can stretch that. So how we can keep providing value to each customer for as long as possible. And there is a lot that goes on in the back end with that, in terms of email marketing, ways we can keep them interested. I think the most that I'm doing is just really digging into digital marketing channels. So, going after these big Instagram wins and using our website to the greatest advantage. We do a lot of work on our actual landing page of our website to determine what flow people go through and how many clicks it takes to make a sale, how long people stay. Of course, that's the biggest metric, but what pages on our site that we can take people to keep them engaged. And it's just a lot of how engaged can we keep you? And of course, it's an e-commerce company. So another argument of that is everything is technology. But in terms of just the technical side of it, it's just a lot of really website refining, digital marketing, back-end coding. It's exactly what my mom was saying. It's this whole world of creativity. And it's so encouraging to know that the next generation is going to be even better at this than us in terms of that right brain, left brain switching. Definitely a skill that I wish I had. So that's, yeah, just hearing that is encouraging, because it's just really something to look forward to in the future as this generation of college students come into the workplace. I think they're going to be such assets.
Thank you. And what are some of the skills that are important for anyone wanting an entry-level job in your company, or Doreen, in any of the companies that you've managed? I'd love for both of you to weigh in, because the skill sets are changing. What skills companies are looking for, and people are also looking at different ways of getting an education, right? So we've been having this conversation a lot on Activateen. We're trying to understand that there are different choices now for students, and it's not just one path. So what are the important skills that your company is looking for, Kara?
So much of it is just the ability to organize yourself in a way to where you know what your tasks are, you know what you have to accomplish, and you can just set out a plan to do it. It really is. And I know we talked about this earlier. There's such a benefit to being creative. And it's so necessary now with all the different ways that you can use design thinking in the world. But just developing these internal systems and these internal checklists and structures and ways that you can organize your creativity and be that person for yourself, I think is so valuable. Your creativity can take you so far, but you need to have a way to manage that and to use it to its fullest potential by being organized and self-sufficient and a self-starter. So I think no matter what path you take, college, trade school, apprenticeship, going right to work, that's just really going to take you so far across the board, is the ability to organize yourself and to organize your tasks and to manage your own creativity so that someone else doesn't have to manage it for you.
Thank you. And what are some of the tools that you're using everyday marketing tools? What are some of the, do you use Canva? Do you use,
Google Analytics is such a big one. Google Analytics is huge, so helpful for knowing what's going on and all of your touch points on your site. I personally use the Todoist for my to-do lists. I'm very, I have tasks, I have subtasks. I actually don't really use Canva that much. I'm not, as much as we talk about design thinking, I'm much more of the thinking half of that. I'm less of the designer. Canva is great for people like me who don't have the art full design skills, and I can do it. But we do have a couple members of our company who are wizards with Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. So I know that that's a big one. Something that we use for email marketing too is Klaviyo is really good for just standard email marketing. As an e-commerce company, we thrive on Shopify. It's a great platform for getting everything done. But in terms of practical tools, really my biggest suggestion is learn how to use Google Analytics and learn how to use it well, because it's the future.
I love that. I love that. It's because a lot of times we find that, when you're looking at resumes, you actually want applicants to actually know certain basic tools, because that every organization now is based on, is using some platform or another. And are you using Salesforce or do you have HubSpot integration yet, or
I'm actually not the best person to ask that question of. I'm not entirely positive there. I can tell you that a skill that was lacking at my previous job, we really needed someone that knew Facebook advertising inside and out. So I volunteered myself and I said, I'll do it. And I took some Facebook blueprint classes and I taught myself all of the back-end Facebook business manager advertising. And that's really been helpful moving forward. That's another something that I would suggest everyone check out. There are free Facebook blueprint classes that will teach you everything you need to know. And if, say, you didn't major in marketing or you didn't have a lot of marketing classes, that's a really great crash course. I know you said you love acronyms. It's a really great crash course into every single marketing acronym that you can ever need to sound like you know what you're talking about in a meeting and feel confident in the things that you're backing up. So Facebook Blueprint is a huge one.
That's a great tip. That's a great tip. Doreen, what do you see students looking for? What skills do they?
And this is what I tell all of, I talk to a lot of our students that are going to be graduating or want to get a job. And what I tell them is, look, nobody thinks when you get out of college, you know it all. And so you don't have this like classic portfolio that, or something that's like shows you that, you're the next Johnny Ive or something like that. That's not but what they want is they want curious, enthusiastic, team players, helpful. They want somebody who has, and then basic skill set, a lot of the things depending on what you go into, but this basic skill set that you can go in and they don't have to teach you how to use Word, or they don't have to teach you how to use Adobe, or they don't have to teach you how to do some of this stuff. So get those. So there are so many online courses you can take and keep teaching yourself stuff and be curious. Kara probably remembers that. I remember when you went for your job interview and I just said, ask a lot of questions. And you said, really? And I said, ask a lot of questions. Like, shows you're curious. And then you came back and then you said, why did they hire you?
The questions.
Asked a lot.
Yeah, a few months into my entry-level job, they said like, oh yeah, the questions you asked are why you're here. That's why you got the job. You asked really insightful questions. So yeah, think about questions that you have. If you were explaining the job description to a friend, what would their immediate questions be? And that's a good way to think of it. And honestly, really just dive deep into Google and see what other people are saying. You use that tool to your advantage of questions to ask, not basic things. Of course, everyone's going to expect you to ask what the culture is like, but really dig into some interesting things that people might be working on and they would be excited to talk about.
Right. So take an interest in what the organization is about, and that drives it. I have an advisory meeting, an advisory board for one of the programs, our game program, and we had a whole bunch of people from the industry on there last week. And what they said is, we just want people who are so enthusiastic, want to be there, who are happy, who want to jump in. And that's a great thing for any student looking at that, right? That will get you so far because you're open to learn.
Yes.
Open to work with people.
So let's talk about 6 months of COVID. Has it been more? I think it's been more. 9. Oh, wow. Wow.
Really? 13th, it will be 9 months. November 13th will be 9 months of COVID.
Maybe it was just wishful thinking that was just.
No, it's been 9. So it's only, time flies when you're having fun. What can I say?
So what were some of you, both of you, what was the silver lining and what were some of the challenges, and what surprised you about yourself?
I'll start off by saying that we're so lucky that neither my mom or I have really hardly felt the effects of how terrible of a disease COVID is. The two of us have managed to stay healthy. Our family has managed to stay healthy, and we're so lucky. Also, both of us are so lucky to have jobs through this. So I want to acknowledge that. That being said, we are going through a lot of the things that everyone else is going through. It's hard to shut yourself off and stay inside. I think for me at least, it's starting to get easier as it becomes normal. And in a lot of ways, I've normalized what's going on. On the business side of things, a lot has changed and a lot has stayed the same. Obviously, the changes are, adjusting to working from home, figuring out how that works. I started a new job during COVID, so starting a job remote was a bit of a trip. But then seeing how a lot of our work stayed the same and how a lot of people stayed the same and habits stayed the same was a bit of a silver lining for me, because it was just reassuring to see that our work is important and the things that we're doing to reach people haven't changed. People are still open. Their curiosities are still the same. A pandemic like this isn't going to kill people's spirit. And that's been hopeful to see.
Right. Thank you, Kara. What about you, Doreen?
I echo a lot of what Kara said. I mean, it was interesting. I'm in a university setting, so obviously we had to pivot very quickly and move all of our students online. So back in March, it was just, I'm teaching this, I'm just going to teach it online. And there was only 6 weeks or so left to the semester. Everybody got through it. But very early on, we decided in our school that we didn't know it was going to happen, although we were reading all the reports. It is science, and knew that this was going to be here to stay. And so we planned very early on to be online in the fall. And as a result, our faculty spent a lot of time. We had a lot of classes we took. We got experts in about, what do you do? How do you teach online design classes or, kind of hands-on classes online? And so we did a lot of work. We had kits sent to people's houses. We made sure students had their equipment they needed. And so we were able to pivot everybody online. That was hard, but it's working. It's working now. And the silver lining for me is something that I talked about before, which is my ability right now to talk to all these students.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have had that set aside, and so I've learned so much because that's the insights. I mean, at the end of the day, that's our customer, what's happening with these students. And so listening to them and seeing this is actually working for them. Of course, everybody would rather be in person, but the understanding where we are today, it's okay. And understanding, I'm really honest with all of them. It's like, it's all of next semester too. And we're keeping our fingers crossed for the fall. I mean, but it's all, right.
Human connection, right?
Yeah. I have so much empathy for any students right now, high school students, college students, people that have to do virtual graduations. That's so hard. I just feel terrible. And I keep on thinking, like, COVID has taken so much. We've all had to make sacrifices. I've actually had to postpone my wedding, but like, that's the hardest to me, is everyone who's in school who's not getting that time in person like everyone else got. And that's really the only time for, I think, a lot of people that they can't take back. So when I talk to my mom and I hear the ways that they're making it work, and I hear how her students did things like design an online campus and have created these online Zoom groups, that's really amazing to me. And it's really encouraging, because I don't know if I would have taken it that well if I was in their shoes or in high school. That's just so hard. That's a time that you just want to have be normal.
Well, look at how you're taking it right now, right? You moved, you had to postpone your wedding, but
a lot going on. Yeah.
That's where the resilience comes through, right? And that emotional wellness. And a lot of that is also the strength of our relationships.
Yes.
That hold us together.
But I think in general, and it's what I tell all the students, our humans are resilient.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that. We will get, it's like, it gets done because it has to get done. We will get through this. We will get through this. And we can either get through this and just rip ourselves apart, or we can take the best of what we have, because we have no other choice. It's not like somebody's punishing us. Like, we have no other choice. This is real. And the consequences for not behaving properly during something like this is dire. There's too many people that have died. There's too many people that are, too many people that are just so sick. So the ramifications of not behaving well are just not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding that's the situation, let's make the most of it. Let's take learnings from all of that. And we talk a lot about the learnings. And let's build, we've all learned how to build communities, and we've all learned how to, kind of exist. And sometimes, yes, I wish we could all go sit in a restaurant and just eat a meal. But that's not going to happen right now. So that's okay. It will again. Life, we will have life again, and what we will have learned. And I think what we learn is what's really important to us, what really matters to us too. And I think our health and well-being and is super important.
That's beautifully said. Doreen, I want to actually, I read a quote of yours when we were talking about, I think this was on a recent article. You said, I don't just have one silver lining. Unrest and trauma bring change and innovation. Change is clearly needed and long overdue. And these catastrophic events could have a positive impact on our lives moving forward. We have to encourage and nurture changes to happen. The worst thing we could do is run away from it or pretend change doesn't need to happen. I thought that was just beautiful. It was just beautiful.
Well, change is, we're sitting here, guess what? We all got a little older. Things happened. Change goes on. So my philosophy has always been, you could be in the back of the train, right? In the caboose, or you can be the engine leading the change. And I've always wanted to be in the front. How do we make, because then we can make positive change and good change. But anytime you see a downturn, something catastrophic, change happens. And so how do you get in front and you make good ethical change for good, right? And so we had to quickly learn that we couldn't get on airplanes and we couldn't travel. We had to quickly learn how to communicate, how to do business, how to do classes online. Things come out of this. And when we all stop and everything's okay, we will take pieces of this and new businesses and new things will happen. If you think about the downturn of 2009, and I know a lot of your students were so young, but that world, there was no Uber, there was no Lyft, right? All of this, there was no Airbnb. All of that came out of that world. New ideas, new things happened. And that will happen now. Yeah. Change is just inevitable. And get in front of it. And sorry, I'll talk politics. What we're seeing in the world today is a lot of people that don't want change, even though it's happening.
Yeah.
Even though it's happening.
It's scary.
Well, I find it fascinating that we have young Congress people, the squad, these young women that have just annoyed. I'm like, they're young women. They're bringing change, and they've gotten under the skin of these kind of curmudgeonly people. And it's like, no, that's your future. Like, embrace what they're saying. That's what you want. You always want catalyst, fire starters, catalysts, people who are out there. That's how change is going to happen. And it's going to be, some of it we'll love, some of it we won't, but it's inevitable. Let's help shape it to be for the good.
That's beautiful. And so I know that we're getting to the end of our podcast. What I wanted to ask both of you is to give me 3 pieces of advice for teenagers.
I will say, you don't have to know what you want. You don't have to know what you want to major in. You don't have to know where you want to go to school. You don't have to know what your job has to be. Just think about things that you're not interested first. Go from the top of the funnel down. That's really advice that was given to me as a teenager, was think about what you don't want to do and think about the things that interest you and that you might want to do and follow those leads. Don't pick one thing and zero in on it. Look at it like a funnel. Right now you're at the top, lots of possibilities, and start to weed things out. Second piece of advice, don't feel like you need to just get out to college as fast as possible. Just enjoy where you are. Enjoy having the responsibilities that you have now. Hopefully it's less than what you'll have later. If not, more power to you. But just enjoy your friends. Enjoy being where you are. Slow down a little bit. And then just keep learning. I think something that I wish I had done was after college, after high school, I missed learning. Thankfully, with things like podcasts, I've been able to continue that a bit. But when you're not learning about things that you have to learn about in school, learn about things that interest you. I know if you're really interested in space travel and what's going on with all these missions that we have in NASA right now, which is something that's I'm so interested in right now. It's sucking up all my time. Learn about that. Just find things that you want to learn about. Even if you think they're not relevant to what you want to do in the future, it doesn't matter. Just soak it all in. You'll find ways to connect everything. So just really keep that learning spirit alive. And I know it can be draining with school and things that you have to do, assignments that you turn in, jobs that you have, responsibilities that you have. But instead of spending 4 hours on TikTok a night, spend 3 and listen to a podcast and the other hour.
Oh, I love your attitude, Kara. That's just spot on. You know, you don't grow old if you keep learning.
No.
How we all stay young. It doesn't matter what happens on the outside. Inside, you're young and curious because you just stay on that. What about you, Doreen?
Well, don't be afraid. Young students are often fearful. And so when I try to walk them, what's the worst thing that could happen? And usually the worst thing that happens is someone says no. So once you get the no, what happens to that? You're like, ooh, I've dealt with it. Now let me move on. So I want students to be less afraid, because fear is a barrier. And we're not asking you to jump off a bridge or take some sort of, unknown medicine. Don't be so afraid of things. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, to talk to people. Don't be so fearful. So that's a really, I try to instill that because I want to help build confidence in young people, right? They have a lot to say and they have a lot so begin to build your confidence. Most young people don't have that. And so I want to build that in them. And the other thing, when you talk about curiosity and continuous learning, like, we have this whole thing about failing. There's no such thing as failure. It's about continuous learning. You have to constantly learn to stay relevant in the world. And so it's all about it. So if something doesn't work out and you're like, okay, what did I learn from this? How am I going to keep moving? How is this continuous learning going to happen? And even at my age, it's a continuous learning. I'm a little distressed by Kara saying that we can't stay on TikTok for 3 hours, because she's the one who introduced me to TikTok. And now I'm like obsessed with TikTok. And I curse her.
And now she's addicted, but it's okay. I dragged her down with me.
I went on it, but I deleted the app once I found out that all my personal information and my browser.
It's gone. Your personal information is gone.
Okay, forget about it. Okay.
That's what I say. I say forget about it. Learn all you want about me.
Yeah, for young people, it's that fear paralyzes people, right? And you have to understand, all of them feel that way. All of them feel insecure. All of them don't. You're here, and together you can become something great. And there's a lot of adults, your teachers, instructors, mentors, who want to help you. And so reach out and don't be afraid of that, because there are people here who can help you take you to that next level.
Oh, beautiful.
That is something that I have to still remind myself of 5 years into being in the real career world. It still gets me sometimes. So it's like a muscle. You have to flex it. And you just have to constantly remind yourself that everything's going to be okay. There's nothing holding you back. It's just your own psyche.
Thank you, Doreen. Thank you, Kara. This was just wonderful. We really appreciated having you on ActivateenCC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jack. We'd love talking to you. Bye, my dear. Bye.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel and to turn on the notification bell for our latest videos.